Okay, the day is finally here to find out how much water treatment is too much water treatment. And we're going to be using Rectorseal 8-way. They make all kinds of products. I think they make several different water treatments and like tons of other things. But 8-way is pretty good, I think. I've been using it for a few years since I've had this house with this steam boiler. And but I've always wondered, are the directions any good? And seems like they want you to use too much of this stuff. That's what I kind of think, and a lot of people think. And I have my boiler with my sight glasses on it now, so I can tell if anything crazy happens. And I'm going to see if anything crazy happens when we use the correct amount according to the instructions of Rectorseal 8-way. So the instructions are kind of vague a little bit. They say, pour or pump 8-way into the boiler until the water turns violet in color. So it's up to you to decide what violet means. But that's the instructions. They give a little more general guidance. 1 quart, which is what this is, 1 quart, is usually sufficient to treat a boiler with up to 30 gallons water content. So with my small residential boiler, it's the smallest residential boiler that Peerless makes. And I know that it has 9.3 gallons of capacity. And there's, let's see, I did the math on this. There's 32 ounces in a quart, of course. And because they say 1 quart treats up to 30 gallons of water, that's pretty close to 1 ounce per gallon. So that's what I'm going to do. I have a little bit of treatment in there now. You can see just a little bit of color marker showing up. And I'm going to drain the boiler and refill it just with pure water up to roughly the 9.3 gallon mark. And I'm going to slowly, well, not too slowly, but over a couple steps, I'm going to add the 8-way treatment in measured amounts and then run the boiler for a period of time to see what happens with any carryover or anything like that. All right, so we're going to drain it first, and looking pretty clean. I drained a little bit off of it a couple days ago, maybe a pint to a quart. All right, bucket number 1. By the way, is this violet? What color is this? I don't know. Doesn't look very violet. It's more violet in the bucket. All right, bucket number 2. Bucket number 3. How many gallons is this bucket anyway? Two and a half? 3? Looks like maybe it's 3 gallons. Maybe 2.5. Oh yeah. I was going to report on my pH level before I started this whole thing. So we're at like 9, something like that. My color gauge here is not printed very well. 10 and 11 are almost the same exact color. There's no difference, so I think I'm at 9 or maybe a little higher. Prior to starting this whole thing. All right. I'll cut out some of this dribbling here. All right. There we go. Now, that's that. Now when I refill this, currently, my boiler is around 140 degrees. When I refill this, is it going to crack the boiler? If I refill it nice and slow, is it going to crack the boiler? Will a boiler crack if it hasn't been dry fired? I don't know. I fill the thing up sometimes slowly from empty like this, but I don't know if it hurts it. Okay, refilling. I'm not going to blast it in there. I refill over here. In my wet return, it goes across the floor. That's behind the boiler. And it comes up here. This pipe is still warm from the last time the boiler fired, an hour or so ago. This will cool off. Okay, it's starting to cool off from the water coming in. So I'll be back once the water starts, well, once the water's done filling up. All right, slowly filling back up. I went ahead and turned up the heat a little bit to get a nice call for heat. We got enough water so the low water cutoff sees it. That's always good. Oh yeah, this thing. Gordo taught us all to put this thing in there. And someone at some point was asking, is it a 1/8 inch or is it a 1/4 inch? And it's kind of both, because the little plug that goes in there is like basically an 1/8 inch. So you can use an 1/8 inch street on that. And if you remove the whole thing, then there's like another little bushing that is part of the plug mechanism. You remove that, then it's a 1/4 inch. So I've got mine as a 1/4 inch right now. Just talking about whatever till this water fills up. Okay. So the line, we're just about there. I'm using the line that's on the boiler. Okay. So that's that. And I've got us nice and lined up here. There we are. You can see, parallax or whatever, but it's right there on the line that's that's stamped in the boiler. And the boiler's heating up, so see what the pH is. Oh, I don't think that was accurate. That looked like too much pH. Might have been some water in there already, or it still had some treatment in the bottom of the sight glass there. So let's see. That's better. Yeah. All right. So there's the pH, and I didn't even see it change color. So it's probably looks like, it's 6 or 7. It's tap water. New Jersey City water. And I'll come back once this is boiling. And this is the control to show it boiling with just tap water at pH 7, no treatment in there at all. There's a question of, is it the pH that maybe causes problems when it gets too high, or is it other stuff in the treatment that might be causing a problem if it gets too high? And I don't know the answer to that right yet. I don't know if this experiment will tell us the answer to that, but it should tell us the answer to the question, how much Rectorseal 8-way is too much. Okay, where was I? I think I just drained the boiler and refilled it with just water. As we can see here, just water, that's right. And I looked at the paper strip to show that it was about 7 pH, the litmus paper. And so we're boiling this. You can see a little condensation running back from my uninsulated section of my main here. And even the insulated sections make some condensation because they're not, they don't stay 212 degrees when the boiler's off. So I just started it up, and there's no appearance of any water here in the risers. You've maybe seen my other videos. This boiler does a really good job with dry steam. So I've got this drop header here, but you can see I don't even need it. I've got two risers. I don't really even need them. Those ball joints. There we go. So I close one of those. I still am not seeing any water up here. Sometimes a little water will come up when I close one side. So that's a thing to check for once I add more treatment back into the system. So okay. Yeah, turn off the boiler. Sorry for the lack of a tripod. I'm doing all this while holding on to my camera here. All right. Oh, I'm a little high, so it's a little more than 2. You can't see it. This is a horrible measuring mechanism, but there's this ball jar here, so I'm just a little over 2 ounces. I'll pour a little bit back out. I want to be reasonably accurate. Okay, so there's 2 ounces of Rectorseal 8-way. What I do is I open up my skimming port here, and I have it tipped upward, and I can pour boiler treatment directly in there, like that. And then I usually get a little water. So I don't have pure Rectorseal sitting there in my port. I poured a little water in there to wash it down. Close that back off. Start the boiler back up. And I'll be editing some of this up. Okay, so I've put in the 2 ounces of 8-way, and we're steaming again, and there's no sign of any carryover. And we can see a little bit of the coloring agent in the sight glass. Let's see what the litmus test says. Okay, see, it turned just a little bit green. And there's my scale. So it basically, before, when it was just tap water, it didn't turn the color at all on the paper, and now it's turning it just slightly. So, I don't even know if it's up to 8, but something like that. So there we are, currently steaming, and everything's fine. Just slightly raised up the pH. Now we're gonna turn off the boiler. Oh yeah, and we're gonna. There's some steam. We're gonna put in the next 2 ounces. Okay. Oh, I have a better idea. What I can do is I close the bottom of the guy here. There we go. So drain the sight glass. Pour that back in. That'll keep our water level constant. And then turn the boiler back on and wait for the next cycle to start. Take another measurement. Okay, I put in the second dose, so that's up to 4 fluid ounces of 8-way in here. You can see the marker is a little darker now. Still, they say, add until it's violet. I don't know, is it violet yet? Don't know the answer to that, but getting another litmus paper. I let it steam for a while, and then flushed out the glass a few times to get the color, to be the actual color of the boiler water. And this is not a good position here, but you can see this is getting darker now. So we're like definitely, I don't know, 9 maybe? Something like that, between 8 and 9. And that's with 4 ounces. And still no sign of any wet steam here. I'm looking carefully for little droplets. There might be some little droplets Very tiny droplets might be appearing on the glass, but they're very small. So just possible little droplets. No big deal. I think this is usually where I keep it. Although maybe I'll keep it a little bit darker than this. We'll see how it goes after the next 2-ounce dose that I put in here. But this is with 4 ounces in my 9.3 gallon capacity Peerless 63-03L boiler. Okay, this is 6 ounces of 8-way. Things are getting a little more purple. Gotta go get my other litmus paper. I'm all out. Figured this would be a little easier. All right, now we're getting somewhere. So now on the key, it's 10 and 11 look identical. So, and I'd say that's about where I'm at. I don't know, if I had to guess, I'd say I'm on the 10 side. It doesn't look, fully dark. So maybe it's somewhere around 10. It looks, in my camera here, it looks a little bit like 9. I imagine it's higher than that. So just based on how much I've added and on tests I've done in the past, but that's what we're looking at right here. Maybe it's just 9. So how's it going with the carryover? Nothing. Nothing there. Let me close the valve on the one side, and no carryover even with the single steam riser, steam supply riser. Still looking good. So we'll add the next 2 ounces, and when we come back it'll be 8 ounces. Alright, we're up to 8 ounces of 8-way, and things look darker, of course. So here's what it looks like in the glass. And yeah, we're getting nice and dark now. We're up to my new paper there has a better looking key, and I can see that it looks more like we're definitely into like 11 right now. Maybe even somewhere between 11 and 12 maybe. It's not an exact science. So 11 or 12 pH. That's what it looks like in the glass. Up here, definitely no carryover. Pull down the one side valve here. No carryover with the single supply either. So we're looking good. That's with 8 ounces. And this is definitely, by the look of that paper, and that's pretty accurate. That's how I'm seeing it with my eyes, how the camera's picking it up. That's what it looks like. And this is darker than I would normally have it. So I normally wouldn't be between 11 and 12 pH. Open that back up. I would be usually around 10 to 11 pH, and I think we're higher than I normally run it. But everything's going fine. So no problems yet. Next stop, 10 ounces. All right, we're up to 10 ounces. This is the prescribed dose, approximately, of what Rectorseal says to put in the boiler. I mean, they say put it until it's violet colored, so it's been violet colored for a little while, but based on their numbers that they say, where one quart treats 30 gallons, then approximately 10 ounces should treat, 9.3, 9.5 gallons that I have in my boiler. So this is about where it's at according to the instructions. So I've got a sample up here. Okay, that's very dark. We're getting beyond, we're getting to the maximum of what it can register here on the paper. So we're definitely, I don't know, definitely 12 to 13. Looks like maybe if it were to turn a little more purple, maybe that would be a little higher. So the paper doesn't hold its color very long, but that's the color that it is right in the shadow there. That's the color that it is right now. And it's definitely 12 to 13 is where we're at. So we could stop there, but what would be the fun in that? There's no carryover, there's no nothing happening here. So at least in my boiler, now my boiler is pretty new and clean, right? So when you put this stuff in your boiler that's got some sediment, some rust buildup and all that, it can react in different ways. This is a pretty new boiler. It's only, I don't know, it's been in service for one season so far, not even. So there's not a lot of rust in there. If you took an old boiler that had been not maintained very well for a few years and put this stuff in there, and the bottle says this too, load it up with the dose, run it for a week, and then drain it again and refill it with clean water, and then and then reload it with the 8-way as a maintenance dose, which is the same as the treatment dose, and see how it does. And that, I think that's pretty good advice. Put it in there, see what it does. It's supposed to loosen up scale and sediment, and based on what my old boiler was doing, it does do some of that. It's not magic, so it might require a few run-throughs of that process of putting it in, letting it run for a week, draining it, refilling it with the maintenance dose, see what the water looks like. This is really clean water here with just the color marker of the 8-way in it, so everything's looking good. But let's see what happens if we keep adding some of this stuff, just for fun. I want to see if it will start to carry over with clean water in a clean boiler. All right, we're up to 12 ounces, looking very violet. Yeah, really purple now. So I'd say we're 13, at least 13 to 14. I don't know. I should have a digital one maybe. I don't know. Those are probably a lot better. But I don't have one of those. So 12 ounces, we're overdosed. Not seeing any sign of anything here. So I'd always warned people on heatinghelp.com that if you put too much in, it can cause carryover, and I'm quite certain I saw that with my old boiler, but again, that could be due to some interaction with the amount of rust that was in that old boiler. There was sediment at the bottom of it. There was sediment in the ports, and if that broke free and got into the boiler water when this product was introduced to it, then that could affect steam production. But right here, again, everything's looking good, so let's try another 2 ounces. Okay, it's the next day, because I ran out of time for testing the other day, and we're now at 14 ounces. I put 2 more ounces in, and that's what it looks like in the glass. I don't think that's any more jumping than normally I see. Maybe a little bit, I don't know. And that's what it looks like there. I'm not going to do any more of these strips after this one because they're all just going to come out super dark, and there's no real benefit there. And there's no carryover. And with one riser, there's no carryover, I don't think. So still looking good, 14 ounces. I think I'm just going to do 16 ounces and then call it a day, because that is around 50% more treatment than they call for. So if it runs fine at 50% more treatment than even they call for, then no one should have any real problem running anywhere in the, I don't know, 50 to 100% of what they call for with whatever pH level you're comfortable with. I think I'll continue to stick around 11. That's what the manufacturer of my boiler says. I think they say around 10 to 11. So that should be fine. But just for fun, I'll put 2 more ounces in and see what it does. Here we are, 16 ounces of Rectorseal 8-way has been added to my boiler, which has a 9.3 gallon capacity. By my calculations, that's about 50% higher than their recommended amount to use. Everything seems fine. Not even one drop of carryover. If you see my other videos, I can make it carry over if I raise the water level. So it will throw water up at least this high with, you know, much more, you know, a few more gallons in there. It'll start to throw water up because the water level is so close to the risers that it can't avoid it. But here at the normal water level, with 50% more treatment, nothing really is happening. I can close the one riser and see if the additional velocity brings anything up, and it doesn't. I mean, there's not one drop of wet steam here. So there you go. So based on what I saw with 8-way with my old boiler compared to this one, I think I mentioned it before, but I think if you have old scale or old sediment rust or mud, you know, in the bottom of your boiler and in the various ports and all those places, I feel like when I was running some 8-way into that boiler, I saw more surging would occur. And it may be that's going to happen until you get all of the crud out of the boiler. I never did get all the crud out of my old boiler. It's actually sitting behind me, and it has some sediment, rust sediment, in some of the various you know, nipples, like some of the ports that was in there. And so the water would, you know, continually turn brown over time. If you have a clean boiler, like a new boiler or a boiler that has had good maintenance on it, where periodically you just let some of the mud come out and keep it clean in there. Don't overdo it with the draining and the flushing and all that. There's no need for that. But once a season, drain some of it out until it runs clear, and keep a nice treatment. I say keep a nice treatment in your boiler. The manufacturers recommend it. Doesn't seem like in residential boilers very many people are treating their water, but I'll always keep treatment in this boiler. And again, I'll shoot for 10 to 11 pH, but right now it's considerably higher than that. You know, the pH scale is logarithmic, and it's really hard to tell the difference between these last few shades of color. So, you know, 12 has 10 times the pH as 11 does, but they're almost identical on this chart. So it's really difficult to tell the pH. I do not have an electronic pH meter, I can't believe I don't have one, but I never have purchased one. So there's the experiment. I tried to overload my boiler with treatment to see if something would happen, and nothing would happen. So very boring result. Thanks for watching, and let me know if you want me to do anything crazy with my boiler.